Hello and welcome to APTN National News on this beautiful Wednesday evening. I'm Sav Chonsa. In a surprise emergency resolution at the Assembly of First Nations AGA on Tuesday afternoon was the decision to not move ahead with a forensic audit of the AFN, a course of action which began with former AFN National Chief Roseanne Archibald, but which was reversed by a resolution passed by chiefs in attendance. Here's Kekw again with more from Montreal.
During Tuesday's sudden resolution, chiefs voted in favor to cancel the forensic audit of the AFN with, quote, the resolution stating the audit was not warranted and should not be undertaken. That decision was under the advice of the accounting firm BDO, which did a review and determined whether or not a forensic audit was needed, which is standard procedure of any auditor. According to the resolution, the BDO review focused on three key factors, including severance packages for former employees, contracts, and credit cards. Numerous interviews with former and current AFN staff was also conducted by BDO. Former Chief Archibald called for the audit 2 years ago, alleging unauthorized or unchecked spending at the AFN, and when she was let go in 2023, she called again for the audit to still go ahead. Chiefs also previously voted in favor of a 10-year audit that would focus on salaries and contracts. That previous support this time around seemed to have disappeared this week. Russ Daibo is a First Nations policy consultant and is the former special advisor to National Chief Archibald. He says the AFN executive did not previously support the audit when Archibald was in office, and that it could have revealed how close the feds and the AFN were in developing new Indigenous policy and legislation.
With her removal and the election of a new national chief, who was, involved in her removal, it didn't surprise me that there was a resolution to basically kill the forensic audit idea, because this administration is going to be very close to the Trudeau government, and we can see that in how the proceedings are going here at the Assembly.
Kitigan Zibi Anishinaabeg Chief Dylan Whiteduck was one of the chiefs who moved to have the resolution struck down on Tuesday. He alleges Archibald, during her time on the AFN Regional Chiefs Committee with Ontario, was unanimously approving decisions on behalf of the former national chiefs. He also alleges Archibald wasn't following policy and procedure when hiring and retaining consultants and giving out contracts to, quote, the way she wanted to. This is what he had to say to the leadership who supported her and the audit.
I believe there's a lot of people that want to see the AFN be dismantled and no longer represented by First Nations. We already have a scenario of Alberta chiefs and a regional chief not being a part of the Assembly of First Nations. So our lines are not all equal, but at the end of the day, we need a national body to represent all of us across Turtle Island and especially Canada. And quite honestly, her supporters and her fans, I wish them all the very best and the very good intentions. But at the end of the day, the destruction of the AFN and that resolution might have been, there was just no meat to the bone.
In the end, the BDO recommended the AFN to update their financial policies and enforcement provisions and make sure that their information in their contracts are clearly written. Kekw, APTN National News, Montreal.
First Nations leaders from across Canada have passed a resolution seeking an independent inquiry into the investigations of the murders of Rebecca Comtois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Mushkade Kekw, or Buffalo Woman, on Wednesday. The resolution would see AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak ask the province's Lieutenant Governor to establish an inquiry into how police and provincial officials probed the 2022 killings. Members of the family of Morgan Harris and supporters were in attendance at the assembly in Montreal. They called on chiefs to support the call for an inquiry to look into why there was a lack of action on searching the landfill, and also an investigation into the policing and their decisions surrounding not to search. Morgan Harris's cousin Melissa Robinson told chiefs in assembly that Winnipeg police failed their family, women, and Indigenous people.
They told us that nothing could be done. It wasn't feasible to go and locate my cousin so that we could bury her properly. Instead, they wanted us to leave her there and them not do anything about it and wash their hands of it. Well, here we are a year and a half later, now doing it when they said they couldn't. So I think back over the last year and a half, the heartache that we've had to go through, how my nieces have had to grieve in front of everybody across this country, and for what, when the police should have done their job.
A missing 28-year-old woman from Fisher River and Jackhead First Nation has been identified as Winnipeg's latest homicide victim. Police were called to suspicious circumstances involving a death in the 300 block of Kennedy Street Friday morning. The victim was identified as Ashley Isabella Murdoch. While police are not saying how she died, they do say her cause of death is suspicious in nature. Anyone with information, including surveillance video, is asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. And family members in British Columbia who have had their loved ones killed by RCMP are seeking for systemic change in how Indigenous people are treated. And their fight for justice has now come in the form of lawsuits and a call for an inquiry. APTN's Tina House has this story.
As hard as it gets, as depressing as it gets, as hard as it gets, and as much racism as we face on a daily basis, as much hatred as we face on a daily basis, I'm going to keep going.
For 3 years, Laura Holland has been fighting for justice for her son, 38-year-old Jared Lowndes, who was gunned down by RCMP while parked in a Tim Hortons drive-thru in Campbell River, BC. The RCMP were trying to serve a warrant, but things escalated quickly when a police dog was deployed into his vehicle, and the dog was killed when he attacked Lowndes. Police then opened fire, and Lowndes was killed. His mother, Laura, says she wasn't told how many times he was shot until much later.
And I've had to go to court, and I've had to fight for my son's clothing. Because if I didn't fight for his clothing, I wouldn't have seen that he was shot in the back 3 times. Like, what danger were they facing if they shot him in the back? So what I'm trying to do is create a pathway for other Indigenous people and other people, all people, to know how to get some sort of justice.
And despite the fact that the Independent Investigations Office did recommend charges against the 4 RCMP officers in this case, the BC Prosecutor's Office refused to go to court with the recommendations. So now, Laura and her team are pursuing a lawsuit against the RCMP and looking for a more thorough look at the dozens of cases of Indigenous people who have been killed by police in Canada.
So we're calling for a public inquiry into the systemic killing of Indigenous people by the police. We've seen a failure of the legal system to uphold the law or the administration of justice and to seek justice for these families.
2 other family members are joining Laura. Martha Martin's 26-year-old daughter, Chantel Moore, was killed on June the 4th, 2020 by an Edmundston, New Brunswick city cop after he was called to do a wellness check on her. Tragically, just 7 months ago, her 24-year-old son, Mike Martin, died while in RCMP custody in Surrey, BC.
They stated that, my son had taken the elastic off his undergarment to asphyxiate himself. Well, going back, remembering that when we got his undergarments, they were intact. So it raised more questions like, how is it possible? So if he didn't use his undergarments, then, and I'd asked to look at pictures, and now they weren't his pictures to share. And then, so I left with more questions than answers.
Laura Manson's brother, 28-year-old Julian Jones, was shot and killed by RCMP on the Kekw First Nation near Tofino, BC.
I'm currently pursuing a civil lawsuit on behalf of my parents and brother as they witnessed the death of my brother Julian. And so this has been a really long, excruciating haul, as I don't have community support from my nation and my family. We've been grieving a lot lately.
And like many other families, tragedy has united them in their fight for justice. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Thanks for that, Tina. A medical examiner has identified the remains of a body found last month in Musqueam, Alberta. 17-year-old Christopher Cryer went missing from his community of Samson Cree Nation in October of 2022. He was thought to have traveled to Edmonton, but searches turned up nothing until this discovery. RCMP says it is still an active investigation. And police in Winnipeg say a man from Nunavut who was reported missing last week has been found dead. They are not saying how he died. On Tuesday, Winnipeg police announced they located the body of 24-year-old Johnny Aragutanak of Sanikiluak, Nunavut. They say foul play is not suspected. Johnny's mother told the CBC that her family had been in Winnipeg since March because of a member's medical needs. The Winnipeg Police Service said Aragutanak was last seen July 3rd in the Polo Park area. Winnipeg Police Service did not say where the body was found nor whether the cause of death was determined. We need to step aside for a moment, but stick around for more Indigenous news after the break. The Kekw First Nation, alongside other chiefs and allies, were in Ottawa today to ask the federal court for a judicial review of an already approved nuclear waste disposal site. A small gathering held signs as they sat in chairs. A planned outdoor rally was cancelled due to inclement weather. They were there to support the Kekw First Nation's opposition to a low-level radioactive waste disposal site that the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission approved in January. It is planned to be built in Chalk River, Ontario, a kilometre from the Ottawa River. At a press conference, Kekw Chief Lance Heyman said the federal government failed to properly consult the community.
We want free, prior, and informed consent, and when they don't get it, government has many mechanisms in their tool bag that just allows them to push us aside and move forward and do what they want to do anyway. And it's the main reason of why we're standing up and challenging this government to say that those days of you doing that are gone, because
diamond mines are the biggest private industry in the Northwest Territories, but things are changing. And as the next generation of mining develops north of 60, Indigenous corporations want a bigger say in it. Here's APTN's Charlotte Moore-Jacobs with more.
J.C. Gutdale wants big mining conglomerates and colonial governments to know the future of mine deals must benefit Dene and Métis people.
What did we get out of it anyway? We look around our community. Still the same dusty roads. Houses are pretty well the same. But when you look at Yellowknife, it's very modern here. This is where all the benefits go, to a foreign government.
Gutdale is sub-chief for Little Dene First Nation, one of the closest communities to the NWT's 3 active diamond mines. He's one of the first audience members to pose a question to panelists at the week-long 12th International Kimberlite Conference being held in Yellowknife. Little signed an impact benefit agreement with each mine, but 30 years of blasts deep into their traditional territory has had major repercussions.
It's a migration route, caribou. Caribou is our main source of food. It's been like that for hundreds and thousands of years. Since 1997, the caribou never come to our community no more.
The conference sees hundreds of geoscientists and bigwigs from 5 different continents to discuss kimberlites, diamonds, and minerals.
What do you think was the biggest challenges for Indigenous development corporations in the last 30 years to overcome?
Kicking off the week, sessions on Indigenous perspectives on 30 years of diamonds.
The Indigenous government needed to be confident in the diamond mining's commitment to their IBA and their relationship to the communities to put the money on the line, to ensure that the contract was there for the development to be wholly owned by an Indigenous organization. And for the Indigenous government, they had to take a risk.
Yellowknife's Dene member Diana Beck worked for Dead-on-Cho Development, who, along with other DevCorps like Kekw Investment Corporation and North Slave Métis Alliance, service the mine. Between the 3, they've hired as many locals as the 3 diamond mines combined. But there's room for improvement. Former Premier Carolyn Cochrane, whose family has a long history in mining, says the 2 northern diamond drilling companies in Yellowknife can't find work.
So what I'm saying to the Indigenous governments is we need the money in the territory. The biggest thing I noticed when I was going through lists and lists of companies is the bust and boom in this industry. A company that started, I look at the water board, a company that started had applied for a permit and then closed down a year or 2 later. Hundreds of them. Big companies, Lyft, etc. People that are struggling, want to help our economy, but can't get the investment.
As production at the NWT diamond mines winds down over the next few years, the focus will shift to rare earth and critical minerals and metals currently in development stages.
We have a lot of resources, a lot of minerals on our land, but we need to overcome some of those complexities that's being discussed. We have to do better.
Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
A teenage boy in northern Manitoba not only performed his music in front of his community, but he did so while opening up for one of his favorite pop rock bands. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Fred Lincoln captured this picture during a hike up Mount Seymour in Vancouver. Thanks for sharing, Fred. Let us know how you're handling the summer heat. Send us a picture to share@aptn.ca to be featured. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Tomorrow it will be raining and 23 in St. John's, 24 in rain in Charlottetown. It will be 21 in rain in Kuujjuaq and 20 in sun in Nain. Quebec City will be 21 in rainy and rain and 24 in Montreal. Toronto will be 24 with rain and 24 with rain in London as well. Lots of sun in northern Ontario, 25 in Timmins and 23 in Wawa. Churchill will be a sunny 17 and Puckatawagan will be rain and 21. Winnipeg and Gimli are 32 and sunny. Yorkton is 33 in sun and 32 in sun in North Battleford. Meadow Lake is 32 and 23 in Stony Rapids. Sunny and 28 in Fort McMurray, and it'll be 24 in sun in Peace River. Medicine Hat is a warm 37 with sun and 28 in Red Deer. Vancouver will be 23 and 35 in Kamloops. Prince George will be 24 and 16 in Fort Nelson. Whitehorse will be 19 and 18 in Mayo. Norman Wells will be 22 and 20 in Yellowknife. Sax Harbor will be 12 and Tuktoyaktuk will be 19 in sun. Arviat will be 15 and 10 in Cambridge Bay. Iqaluit will be 7 and 10 in Arctic Bay. A teen from St. Teresa Point, Anishinaabe Nation, has already checked off an item on his bucket list. He opened up for one of his favorite pop rock bands during the 42nd annual Bannock Festival. While the young man likes doing covers to get the crowd going, it's writing his own music that helps him through isolation. Here's a first perspective from him and his #1 fan, his mom.
name's Baron Mason. I go by Baron May. And I'm 16 years old and I come from here, St. Teresa Point, Manitoba. Feeling nervous, I guess, because this is a really huge thing for me and for the boys. We're opening up for Mariana's Trench, so we just kind of assembled. We're still youth, and we're doing these things. And not much youth get to do this, especially as Native. This festival has been going on for about 4 to 2 years already, and counting. It'll just keep on going like that. All sorts of people come from around Island Lake just to come here to Bannock Festival. We're playing 5 songs. Two of them which is covers. That is Begging and Creep.
How many people showed up?
I don't know why there's so much people. I didn't know people knew me.
Go to sleep tight. What inspires you for your writing?
For my writing, it was because I went through a hard time. And it was just a way to let it all out.
My name is Vina Mason. I am Baron May's mom.
Yeah, you were front row for your son. You look so happy.
Yes, I was so excited. It's really good to see our young people get a chance to perform a big band. He sang 3 of his original songs. And yeah, he made these songs for himself, and I'm very proud of him.
I decided to make a song about with the way that I see women too. They're nice, they're kind, but they can also take that away right away, which makes them really powerful. So you don't play with a woman.
Me and my husband are really strong in our traditional ways. I know my son is a really humble man. Boy, I should say. His dad is really a humble man too, so he carries that with his dad. And he got a booking to go to Edmonton for the K-Days, I believe, and so he'll be going there July 21st. I do support him, even my extended family, my mom, my sister, we try to go to these places with him.
I feel out loud, cherishing these beautiful nights.
I'll enjoy the show.
And one day I'll see you with a Grammy in your hand?
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
Manifest it. Say, I will get a Grammy. Say it.
Okay, I will get a Grammy.
Right on. Thank you so much.
What a great voice, and good for him. And thanks to TR Wheatley and summer student Zach Bowser for capturing his performance for us. Join us again tomorrow to see why it was important to give the youth from St. Teresa Point VIP access to Mariana's Trench. And that's all the time we have for this evening's episode of APTN National News. I hope you enjoyed these stories our reporters brought to you today. If you're looking for more news, please visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Sav Jonesa, and from all of us here at APTN, thank you so much for joining us.